I'm ready.
Wonderful. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Chatter. Today I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Dennis Porter, CEO and co-founder of the Satoshi Action Fund, and a man very much in demand at this exact moment in time. So, man, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me.
Happy to be here, Josh. Thank you for inviting me on, and I'm very much looking forward to the conversation around Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, so talking right now, the price is, let's check, it was about, $95,000. So since the election of Donald Trump, the state of Pennsylvania have announced that their plan to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And then there's been word that the state of Texas might do the same. So how exactly does a government do that? There's a lot of people obviously saying that the US government should do it, or other governments in the world might do it. But like, how does a government actually buy some Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's a great question. But before we jump into how you buy Bitcoin, I think it's important to take a step back and talk about, why these governments should want to buy Bitcoin. In the United States, we have a number of different strategic Bitcoin reserves. We have a number of different strategic reserves that exist today, and it's good to look at those before we figure out why we would want a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So the strategic reserves that exist today, they range everything from rare minerals to uranium to ammo to agriculture to gold, which is a common one that people know, to petroleum, another popular one that people are aware of, to things like medical supplies. The reason that we have these different types of strategic reserves that exist today is because we need to have shock absorbers for very extreme events that may occur, and also to help protect us from geopolitical risk. So in the case of a shock absorber, there's a really easy example to show what happens when you don't have the strategic reserve that you need in place in order to prepare for the shock from some type of extreme event. That would be most clearly the medical supply reserves that we have in this country. During the pandemic, during the shutdowns, it was obvious and clear that we did not have enough reserves in order to help protect the American people. We saw doctors, we saw nurses walking around in garbage bags because we didn't have enough medical gowns for them to wear. So it's so important that we as a country think about these really extreme events that could occur, like a pandemic, something that only occurs every 50 or 100 years. And we prepare for them, because the average American, the average hospital really cannot prepare for these extreme events, and nor should they have to. It's way too economically burdensome on anybody to have to prepare for these type of really, really just world-changing events that take place, unfortunately, very regularly, but not so regularly that we as the average people can prepare for them. So that's one clear example of the importance of a strategic reserve as a shock absorber. When you transition to the geopolitical side of things, it's really important to keep in mind that the United States dollar is in decline. Now, I don't think necessarily we're going anywhere anytime soon, but we've gone from over 70% of the market to below 50% of the market, 58% of the market, I should say, in a very short matter of time. It only took a couple of decades to get there. Beyond that, we have groups like BRICS who are actively trying to create alternatives to the US dollar, and particularly to the US banking infrastructure, which includes things like SWIFT and our ability to enforce sanctions. That power has diminished over time. I think it's going to continue to diminish. We may be able to regain our footing, but ultimately, I think it's smart for us as Americans to think, well, even if there's only a 1% chance that BRICS or someone else comes along in the future and is able to dethrone the dollar, that we have a hedge for that type of scenario. And that I believe that Bitcoin, of course, is an important hedge for us in this scenario. Now, let's compare it to the oil reserve that we have in this country. The oil reserves that we have in this country are there explicitly in place because of groups like OPEC, OPEC Plus, who in the past have tried to prevent the United States from having access to their oil production. At one point, they were able to take 5% of oil production offline during the oil embargo in the 70s. In a very short period of time, we saw economic crisis set in, and we also saw stagflation set in because of that behavior. And that is the exact reason why the United States has a oil reserve today, because it was a reaction to those aggressions from OPEC and OPEC Plus. The oil reserve ultimately helps to prevent any sort of extreme pressures that can be placed on us by our foreign adversaries, by those that do not have interests aligned with the United States. And so as Americans, we should be thinking about how we can secure ourselves going forward in the digital future that we're about to enter into. Everything is becoming more digital by the day, and it's smart for us to jump forward before our political rivals do and capture some of the digital land. Some people like to compare Bitcoin to digital land. I think it's a great comparison, but we have this opportunity for a digital land grab where we can acquire Bitcoin right now before Russia, before China, before any of our political adversaries, and put ourselves in a really great position. You know, thinking back to some other land grabs that the United States participated in, we had the United States buying Alaska, the entire state of Alaska, from Russia for $15 million. Think about the strategic advantages of having Alaska versus not having Alaska. Yeah. Alaska is a $70 billion a year GDP. It has critical amounts of energy assets, energy reserves. It also puts us on the doorstep of Russia versus Russia being on the doorstep of one of the most largely populated cities in the Pacific Northwest. Instead of Seattle being 2,500 miles from the Russian border, it would be 600 miles from the Russian border. Think about in any type of fast response that we might need to participate in the event of a global crisis or a global conflict. We would not have the time necessary to be able to respond to a nuclear strike in that 600-mile radius. It would greatly diminish our ability to be able to respond. So think about the strategic significance, the economic significance that Alaska provides. I think the same opportunity is provided to us in Bitcoin today, right now. In my personal opinion, I think that Bitcoin is going to be the global monetary system that operates interoperably between all the other monetary systems. It is going to be the neutral monetary system that exists in between all the other monetary systems and financial systems. And so I think it's smart for us to go grab a little bit of that digital forefront and secure our future as we move forward into a totally different financial paradigm that currently existed before. Now, some people might think I'm crazy. They might think that this is never going to happen. But again, even if there's a 1% chance that I'm right, I think the United States would be smart to start securing our pathway towards that future. Now, when it comes to buying Bitcoin, there's going to be a wide range of different reasons or approaches for how governments buy Bitcoin. Senator Lummis has a couple different tools in her toolbox that she's trying to accomplish. One is to utilize the gold. One is to reprice gold because it's currently undervalued at the Treasury. One of them is also to take the confiscated Bitcoin that currently sits at the U.S. Marshals and place it into the Treasury. So there's a lot of ways that you can accomplish the goal of building that reserve. And I think governments across the world should pursue whatever way they can, whatever way. I don't care if it's confiscation. I don't care if it's selling the gold, repricing the gold. I don't care if it's creating the ability for people to pay taxes and then letting the government in Bitcoin and then letting the government keep the Bitcoin. Ultimately, we just need to pursue all these possible approaches so that we can land on getting Bitcoin and having more Bitcoin on the balance sheet of the governments that we sort of sit underneath of, right? As individuals, we want to make sure that our countries, me in the United States, many of my friends around the world, are protecting ourselves from possible risks that are associated with the current fiat system that we live within. And I think that Bitcoin is a clear solution for helping us overcome some of the problems that exist in our current financial system. And it would behoove us to go out and start acquiring Bitcoin and also building a lot more Bitcoin mining in our countries to make sure that we are securing our future in the Bitcoin mining bright orange future that's right in front of us.
Wow, you said a lot there. That was a lot of things and a lot of reasons that governments, should want to buy Bitcoin. So how much should they buy? Like, say, how much should they buy? I
mean, I think bare minimum, you should look at how much gold that you have as a country and say, okay, well, if I have this much gold, then I should have, the equal percentage with regards to the above ground gold that exists today. This is how Senator Lummis is looking at it. She wants to say the United States have the same amount of the Bitcoin supply as we do of the above gold reserves in the world. So that's why she was pursuing the 1 million Bitcoin. I think that's a rational approach. At Satoshi Action, we have legislation. We're helping we were saying up to, now we're saying at least 10 states. We were saying up to 10 states. We've had so much outreach. It's going to probably be bare minimum 10 states that introduce legislation to start creating strategic Bitcoin reserves. One of the metrics that we used is for them to acquire up to 10% of their treasury in Bitcoin. We didn't just come up with that number out of thin air either. We also use gold as a metric. There is a large gold and silver movement at the state level. A lot of states are pushing and have successfully pushed for legislation to allow the state to buy gold and silver. And we up to 10% of their treasury can be in gold and silver. And we took that number. We said, well, if they're doing sound money, gold and silver, if that's the level that they want to pick for these other monetary assets, then we should have that same monetary. We should have that same percentage apply to Bitcoin as well. So we have a 10% number. Some other states are probably going to choose a different number, and other countries are going to choose a much smaller and a much bigger number. Really, I think it's just about right sizing whatever you can get across the finish line. Like get off zero, right? Like that's a common line in the space. I don't care how much Bitcoin your country buys. Just start buying Bitcoin. Get off zero as soon as possible, and then start making the decision that's right for your country from there. But at the bare minimum, people need to be just starting to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet at the government level, whether that be at the state level or the federal level.
So reserves, as you said, are for shocks to society. Like ultimately this is for like a backup plan. Like this is to see us through the collapse of the fiat system, theoretically.
The fiat system doesn't need to collapse, though, to be clear, in order for Bitcoin to be successful. I think that the fiat system has risks that are associated with in its inherent design that Bitcoin is the insurance for. If you think there's a 1% chance your local currency could fail or hyperinflate or be debased significantly in the next 10, 20, 30 years, you should be buying Bitcoin. That's true for the individual. That's true for the government as well. But just to be clear, fiat doesn't need to fail in order for Bitcoin to be successful. I think there's actually a world where the US dollar and Bitcoin survive and thrive together into the long term. When you think about it this way, stable coins are proliferating across the entire world, especially US stable coins, because the dollar, despite in decline, according to the statistics, is very much in demand by people all across this planet. When I travel all across the world, there is a very significant amount of the global economy that is occurring in dollars. I go to some countries and they can't even get people to use the local currency. They are like trying to figure it out. They can't figure it out. All the loans are happening in dollars. They can't figure out how to get the banks to stop doing it because the dollar is so popular and it's in such high demand. Additionally, there is just so much lending that occurs in the dollar that people need dollars all the time to be able to pay on their loans. So I don't think the dollar is going anywhere. I think it's actually going to expand from here. Stable coins like Tether and Circle are going to become very popular all across the world. And the more people use those stable coins, the more there's two good things that are going to happen. More people are going to buy Bitcoin. It's proven fact. Dollar holders, the biggest buyers of Bitcoin. The dollar is the best fiat currency that exists right now globally, and that is accessible. And when people are able to have the dollar as their fiat currency, their lives get better than when they were previously on a different currency. They're able to save more. They're able to spend in the future. They're able to plan for the future, and they're able to buy Bitcoin. They're able to save in Bitcoin. So that's a good thing. We see more people using the dollar. We see more people buying Bitcoin. Also, beyond that, anytime Tether and USDC, whenever someone says, hey, I want to get US dollar stable coins, what they do is they turn around and they use the resources that they've collected, which is significant, and they buy US treasuries. So not only is our stable coins good for Bitcoin and dollar proliferation, they're also good for bringing down rates and making sure that there's demand for US treasuries. So this is a very pro-dollar, pro-Bitcoin world that we're about to enter into. And I think that it's going to start to run away from us. And we need to act now as individuals and with our countries, but also helping other countries as well. The United States is going to lead here, but ultimately I believe that other countries will follow.
So why would they? I agree that Bitcoin could be the future of money, very much so. But why would theoretically you choose a strategic reserve in an asset that's been quite volatile? Like, admittedly, quite volatile over the past. Yeah, oh, yes, it's gone up, but it's going up and down. You've had severe bull and bear markets. Like, is that the best thing to be buying as a strategic reserve? Why not just buy gold?
Well, because Bitcoin is the scarcest money in human history, and gold has failed as money. Bitcoin is going to be growing exponentially, and also is going to become critically important on the mining front as well. I mean, look at what the Bitcoin miners can do from an energy perspective. They can balance the grid. They can save clean energy. They can save renewables. Really, I talked to renewable energy companies all across the world. They are struggling horribly. They are failing. They are going to go bankrupt, a lot of these renewable energy companies. Some of them already are. It's because they can't sell their power. When you build a wind farm or a solar farm in the middle of nowhere, because you need to go where the wind is strong and the sun is bright in order to be economically efficient, you are far away from where power is being sold. So you have to transport it over very large high voltage transmission lines. That's very expensive, and it's very time consuming to build those. So you have these renewable energy plants sitting in the middle of nowhere, not selling their energy. A Bitcoin mine can be placed right next to one of those wind and solar farms, monetizing 100% of that energy and enabling those renewable energy providers to survive and continue to build. But as Bitcoin mining becomes a bigger and bigger asset to our energy systems, whether that be renewable energy, whether that be balancing the grid, you're going to see a critical need to support Bitcoin mining. And there may be some point in the future when Russia and China and our foreign adversaries say, hey, you know, it'd be great. This Bitcoin mining industry, it's very thin margins, especially in the US. They're mining on very thin margins. Why don't we just suppress the price of Bitcoin for a few months and we just totally eviscerate all the US Bitcoin mining in the United States, which is now critically important to the energy infrastructure. And for those that are in the national security space, everybody knows that grid security is national security. It's a common line amongst energy professionals. We have to protect our grids. We have to make sure our energy systems are secure. Bitcoin mining is going to become a critical tool for that. If Russia and China decide one day, 20 years from now, oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's suppress the price of Bitcoin, hurt the U.S. Bitcoin mining operations, hurt the U.S. grid. That's why I believe it's important for the United States to be in the game of buying Bitcoin, because if the OPEC-minded people of the world say, let's crash the price of Bitcoin so we can hurt U.S. markets and hurt the U.S. grid, the U.S. could step in and start becoming a buyer of Bitcoin. Now, I don't think that actually play out. I think just by being a potential buyer of Bitcoin in the marketplace, those that don't have our interests in mind will take a second pause and think twice about trying to suppress the price of Bitcoin to hurt U.S. markets.
So what happens if the US government decide to go for this and go YOLO? What happens? Like, do other nations like just start doing it as a response?
Of course, absolutely. When the U.S. leads, the world follows. I mean, this is the environment we live in. We are very good at finding where the puck is going and skating to where the puck is going. And then when other people see that we are skating to where the puck is going, they want to compete with us. They want to match us. They want to go there with us. So if we as a country say Bitcoin is the future, others are going to follow us just by the very nature of the United States doing this. And I know I'm not trying to speak about it like it's some sort of ego thing. Like, I just talked to some folks in another country. I just got off another line with them, and they were saying our media market, they just copy you guys. They don't even come up with their own stories. They just see what's going on in the New York Times, and they literally just copy and paste it into our media market. The United States is in a leadership position. I think we should show leadership on Bitcoin. I think that the world will benefit if we show leadership on Bitcoin, because ultimately Bitcoin has so many great things that it can add to the world. It can help us bank the unbanked. It can be a financially inclusive tool for people all across the world. The 2 billion people that are currently unbanked right now, one of them could be the next Einstein, but we will never know, because that person was never able to buy their first textbook. They were never able to save up for university. So Bitcoin is a powerful tool for lifting people up in places where there is no opportunity. We already talked about how Bitcoin mining has so many energy benefits, but this tool And Bitcoin really is a tool. This is a very, very powerful tool. We are only just beginning to understand how powerful it is. Oops.
Oh.
Let me reset my camera.
Lost
I'm
it.
sure you can edit that.
Yeah.
Since camera got too hot, I left the heater on in my room and it overheats sometimes.
That's right.
You might want to give it a second to see if it stays on. Yeah, see, it's going to go off again. 1 second. Let it cool off. It takes like 30 seconds.
Yeah, no problem. Where were we? Mining. Tether.
Let me see. Give it a second. See if it's happy now. Okay. Yeah, it seems good.
Awesome. So, do we risk making Bhutan the richest country on planet Earth?
We're going to have a lot more Bitcoin than Bhutan. I mean, at the end of the day, the United States, we have more Bitcoin holders than anywhere in the world. Our people hold more Bitcoin than any country in the world. So if we want to make our country rich, we can buy Bitcoin in our own country. People in our own country will become extremely wealthy. And also, I don't think Bhutan is going to get to 1 million Bitcoin anytime soon. We currently sit on 210,000 Bitcoin. Just by saying to the U.S. Marshals, let's keep that Bitcoin. Let's not move it up for auction. Let's end the auction. Let's put it into the U.S. Treasury. That's a huge jumpstart on our path towards getting to 1 million Bitcoin. But I don't think Bhutan will come anywhere close to getting a million Bitcoin anytime soon.
Would that require an act of Congress?
It just really depends on where the political philosophy comes from. I think most people believe that you need legislation. I certainly believe even if there was an executive order, some people are pushing an executive order. If there was an executive order, that the next incoming president could very likely just strike down that executive order. So if Trump tries to create a strategic reserve with an executive order, even if he does that, I still believe that we need to have legislation passed in order to solidify a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So can you've said a lot on Twitter about different countries and you're getting calls from all around the world. Can you give us some hints as to the types of governments that you've been speaking to?
I can tell you that they are in multiple continents, that we have conversations happening in Latin America, and we have conversations happening in Europe. There is likely to be a third continent that is going to start conversations and negotiations around this policy vertical. That's all I can share for now.
So how does it work legislatively, and who then, like, who gets the seed phrase, like who gets the keys to the wallet? Does that belong to the state or nation? And how do they go about making these large purchases? Like, how are they gonna how are they gonna do it? Are they gonna convert it all into USDC, or buy some other coin and then purchase it with like one single wallet? Like how would a state or nation actually go about doing this?
I mean, there's a variety of different approaches you can take, just like with the nuclear codes and the little nuclear, you've seen those videos of the nuclear submarines, they turn the keys at the same time. Yeah. You can do the same thing with Bitcoin. You can have multiple keys that both need to be plugged in and turned at the same time. It's called multi-sig. I certainly think that's going to be a great government solution. The great part is I don't have to figure this out. There are so many innovative and brilliant people in the space figuring this all out right now. They're talking to me. They're calling me. They're saying, we figured it out. We have the solution for governments. I love it. I don't have to figure that out. I'm not a tech person. I've done my due diligence. I read Mastering Bitcoin enough times to make the book fall apart, to understand that how Bitcoin works. And it's why I became such a big believer in 2017. It was the first book that I really read. And so I understood the beautiful, simple design around Bitcoin. However, I am not going to be the one building these solutions for anyone. There are many people in the space actively working and approaching governments with their potential solutions.
So you mentioned it being like a global reserve currency, or like the neutral monetary system, do you think it's possible for it to become non-monopolized by the largest powers? Like you theorized earlier about like a world in which Saudi Arabia or Russia, China might collude to like suppress the price of Bitcoin. Does it risk becoming monopolized by one superpower?
No, I don't think so. Bitcoin is totally permissionless. And the greatest thing about Bitcoin is over the last 15 years of Bitcoin's existence, we've had this great opportunity where people across the world and individuals have been able to buy Bitcoin and have been able to decentralize the supply. Governments are just getting into the game. They're like the last adopters. There's not much Bitcoin left to buy. Also, additionally, it's important to remember that owning supply doesn't mean you control Bitcoin. You just own the Bitcoin. You don't control what happens to the network. You don't decide which direction we go with how the code is designed. That's all done by the users. This is one of the most important things about Bitcoin. The users are in control, and the users decide which path they want to go down. If you want to run your own node, you can run whatever software you want. I can't tell you what to run. This is also why it's super important for us to fight for decentralization. Fighting for decentralization for Bitcoin is one of the most important fights that we can possibly fight. And it's why, I was a very big supporter of the small blocks during the block size wars. I don't think we should increase the blocks now. Maybe sometime in the future, my perception will change. I don't think we have any reason to need to change the blocks. Keep them small, keep Bitcoin decentralized, because if you keep it decentralized, you keep the blocks small. That means that the block sizes are smaller. That means the data is smaller that you save onto your node. That means that more people across the planet can run a node. If you make the blocks big, you put in more data, the block size gets really big, the data on the block chain gets very large, and you can't store all the data on a small node. You have to get a very big node. You have to get a node that's so big, most people won't even be able to afford it. And so nobody will be able to run their own node. Nobody will be able to make their own decisions. This is why it's so important that we fight for decentralization, because yes, if we didn't fight for decentralization, some large government or entity could come along and co-opt it. This is not going to happen with Bitcoin. I think we went through this. We've already went through this war once and won. I think if we went through it again, we'd win again.
So, do you think anyone has solved like the L2 problem? Basically, like the cost of transacting. Like, if it's to become the reserve currency.
Lightning is a great solution. I don't think it's not the solution for everything, but Lightning is a layer 2. It's been active almost the entire time that I've been in Bitcoin. I found Bitcoin in 2017. It's been in the works and in development, and now it's out in the market. I think it's done great things for Bitcoin. I was just in El Salvador. I was buying beer. I was buying lunch. All on the Lightning Network. Zero problems. I think it works great. I don't think there are people that say it can't scale globally. That's fine. At the end of the day, the great thing about Bitcoin is so valuable, and people are so interested in unlocking it that they will innovate a way forward for us to be able to achieve what we need to achieve. I don't have the answer to the perfect Bitcoin solution 20, 30 years from now when everybody's on Bitcoin, what we're going to do. But I think Lightning is certainly a great tool for the meantime for us to be able to transact. You can buy Bitcoin. You can buy anything with Bitcoin for fractions of a penny, and instantly. It's an instant transfer of Bitcoin. So it's a great solution for now.
Why Bitcoin over? Why are we not? Why are you not being like, we need a strategic Cardano reserve or a strategic XRP reserve? Like, what makes it different for the people who don't perhaps see the difference?
So this is Bitcoin's use case. This is why Bitcoin exists. Bitcoin is the perfect savings technology. It is perfectly scarce. 21 million. There will never be more. It is the best sound money we've ever had. It is the best money we've ever had in human history from a savings perspective and from locking in our value and being able to project that forward in time. Gold did a great job up until now, but gold also failed because it was not transportable. It's very expensive to transport. It's very heavy. It's very expensive to even store gold. It's incredibly expensive to store gold. It's nearly free to store Bitcoin. It's nearly free to send Bitcoin. Gold is not digital, can't be digital. Bitcoin is 100% digital. It's built for the modern economy. I certainly believe that Bitcoin, its perfect use, one of its perfect use cases, at least, is being a reserve currency or a reserve asset. So there's really no. This is the funny part. Normally, you have other crypto people arguing, "Oh, well, we can do that better," or this is a better use case for Cardano or for Ripple. No, they're not even arguing because there's no argument. Bitcoin is the only reserve currency. There is no second best.
Yeah, I mean, it seems inevitable the governments are going to start jumping in. I'm very excited to see whether the US decide to go for it. For my wallet as well, will be very nice. I'm sure when everyone starts jumping in. So I wanted to go back just a minute to where was it? So BRICS are planning potentially some sort of challenging currency to the US dollar. That's their payment system, to the SWIFT payment system. And there've been talk about like a gold backed gold-backed currency to have some sort of hard money that they can utilize maybe between all of them. I don't know how on earth this is going to work. This is just the things that people say. When you say it out loud, it sounds a little more ridiculous, actually, than when you read it. But do you think that Bitcoin could be the thing that backs the US dollar in the future, or would it be a Bitcoin / gold standard, or is this just like a strategic reserve in that they just sort of hold it on their balance sheet, but it's nothing like linked to the dollar?
It just really depends on. There's a number of factors that could change the future. I think certainly Bitcoin is a great asset if you wanted to use it to back a currency. Some people have theorized that even BRICS may use Bitcoin as a way to back a future currency. I don't think they're talking about that right now at BRICS, but it is a better solution, in my opinion, than something like gold. When it comes to the United States, I don't think we need to or could, in the short term, back the US dollar with Bitcoin. But what Bitcoin will do is it will act as a check and balance against runaway monetary inflation and debasement. Because every time that you debase the currency, the US currency, you're going to see an opposite effect with Bitcoin, where Bitcoin goes up in value. Bitcoin is perfectly scarce, and the US dollar is extremely flexible. So if you abuse the flexibility, which is it's a great thing to have, flexibility. The problem is human beings have had money for 10,000 years, and all 10,000 years, whenever money became flexible and easy to be flexible, we've abused the power. So we can't resist you abusing the power of the flexible currency. But I think Bitcoin, what it can do is it can act as a check and balance on that abuse of power. And so that's, I think, where Bitcoin fits in nicely with a dollar future.
Can the US government just buy Bitcoin their way out of a deficit?
Could just buy Bitcoin? Yeah, sure. I mean, they could. I think most people are of the mind that right now we should be finding ways that don't add additional burdens onto the U.S. taxpayer. So by buying Bitcoin, deficit spending, and adding debt to the balance sheet, I mean, certainly you could do it. It would be easy, very easy to do. We do it all the time for things that are much less important than Bitcoin. But I think smart right now, where we are with the Overton window, I think it's smart to pursue approaches that don't force us to have to raise the debt or raise taxes.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Yeah. Anyway, so you've been talking a lot about energy markets and about how renewable energy places that could use Bitcoin in order to earn a little bit more money. Can you give us a little bit more of an explanation about how that works to make renewable energy more reliably efficient?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I said before, renewable energy providers are struggling all across the world. I talk to renewable energy companies all across the world, and they have this very big problem. The problem is that they are very dependent on time and geography. Solar, for instance, it only generates power when the sun is in the sky. and it needs to be where the sun is bright, because you want to maximize the amount of energy that you can generate from a solar farm. And if you go somewhere where it's cold and it's cloudy, you're not going to get enough sun to be able to make it make sense, to make it pencil out. So these solar farms, they need to go where it's very bright, where there's not a lot of or not a lot of clouds, and they want to try to stay on as long as they can during that time frame. So that's one problem. Is the only period of time which they can be on. They're not on all day like a baseload energy asset. Additionally, those locations where the sun is bright and it's not very cloudy tend to be further away from where most people or most cities or most industrial parks develop. And that is where power is bought. It's called a demand center. So what happens is you build a solar farm in the middle of nowhere with nobody around you. So you have to transport it over huge electrical lines called high voltage transmission lines. You transport it large distances, which is very expensive to do, very time consuming to get it to the demand centers. But because it's so expensive and it takes so long, you'll have renewable energy providers wasting all their energy in the meantime. A decade can go by with nothing happening, where large portions of the energy from the clean energy site goes wasted. They call it curtailed energy. Whenever a renewable energy plant, let's say you have a 100 megawatt renewable energy plant, and they're only able to sell 50 of it, the other 50 is wasted. It's called curtailed energy. So that wasted energy, the renewable energy generator, they are on the hook for that. So that they're losing out on potential revenue, and it's hurting them pretty significantly. So a solution is to put something next to them to buy the power, but there's very few things that can do that. Almost nothing can do it at scale. Bitcoin mining is the perfect solution here. Bitcoin mining can scale to any size. It can custom fit to any size of any energy asset, and it can be on whenever they want it to be on. They want it to be on 30% of the day. They want it to be on 40% of the day. They want it to buy that other 50 megawatts, but keep the other 50 megawatts, selling it to the grid. That's what Bitcoin mining can offer. Ultimately, Bitcoin mining will optimize clean energy, green energy, wind and solar, and completely eliminate the problem of curtailment. Until, this is the best part, let's say someone comes along, let's say you build a city 10 years later near the wind and solar farm, and you go, okay, well, now we have customers. You can reduce the amount of Bitcoin mining that's taking place there and sell that power now to the city. There's all sorts of arrangements and agreements, and people who are thinking very forward. There's already people thinking about these things, by the way, people planning to build cities based off of the ability to create demand anywhere. If you can create demand anywhere, you can build generation anywhere. Without getting too far into the weeds, you can't just build a power plant in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody there to buy it, except for now there is, because you can put Bitcoin mining anywhere in the world. People have yet to, I think, grasp the impact of being able to build demand anywhere in the world. Needless to say, you stop selling to the Bitcoin miner, the clean energy, you stop selling it to them, and you sell it to the city now. And then you move the Bitcoin miner somewhere else to do more energy development. There's a great article. People should read it. It's called Bitcoin as a Pioneer Species. It was written before anybody even really knew the power of Bitcoin mining and what it could do. But it eloquently lays out, by comparing it to nature, how Bitcoin mining can go in to places where there's energy poverty and eliminate energy poverty. It's an incredible article. It's written by a smart guy named Brandon Quittem. I highly suggest people go read it.
Are there a lot of people doing this? Or a lot of energy companies looking into this? Have you spoken to a lot of people, or is this like a very theoretical thing, or is this something that's happening?
Marathon just announced today that they bought a wind farm. They're going to be mining off of the wind farm to be able to provide revenues. There are renewable energy companies. This is a global problem. There is been a massive expansion of renewable energy all across the world, and nobody's buying the power because they can't transmit the power to where it needs to go. It's a serious problem, and Bitcoin miners are actively today solving this. Beyond that, before anybody even actually started doing this, before Marathon did it, we helped put forward a whole paper. We've done multiple papers, but this one in particular, we co-authored it alongside the former ERCOT CEO, the late Brad Jones, who was an incredible advocate for Bitcoin mining before he unfortunately passed away. We co-authored a paper alongside him, which said that Bitcoin mining is a powerful tool for the energy system and for green energy. That's one paper we wrote. We got another one through the peer review process with some researchers out of Europe This is not only is it happening, people have been thinking about it for a long time, and we have the research, the credible evidence-backed research to back it up.
Wow, that's really cool. That's such an oh, I'm glad some people are doing this. So I guess then, yeah, the question is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, China have announced that they were going to be doing some mining operations, or if they changed their stance on Bitcoin recently. What was it?
There was a change of stance from China. I don't think they're doing Bitcoin mining right now. I mean, not publicly.
What was the change of stance?
There's something about making it not as criminal to buy it or hold it or sell it. I don't remember the exact policy, but it was essentially reversing their current trend on pushing Bitcoin out. They reversed that trend, and it seems like they're going the opposite direction now.
Mm. Maybe they see the tide turning. So what do
they and everybody better see the tide turning. It's coming. It's a giant orange tide, and whether it's this cycle or whether it's the next, people need to realize, like, every 4 years, it's just going to keep getting bigger and more intense. 4 years ago, we were just talking about corporations buying Bitcoin. Now we have governments talking about buying Bitcoin. We're reaching maximum adoption. We're about to go up the supply curve. This is the thing that people don't realize. When Bitcoin starts to run out, and it will, when Bitcoin starts to run out, the ability to buy Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin is going to go insane. $100,000 Bitcoin is nothing. We're going to 10 million. We're going to 13 million bare minimum, according to some estimates.
When does
people think we're crazy?
When does the price run? When does the Bitcoin
human
run?
Human beings have a very hard time understanding exponential technologies. When we run out of Bitcoin, and there's all these countries and all these people and the largest asset managers in the world trying to buy it, where do you think the price goes? It's coming. It's as early as 2028. In my opinion, it's as late as 2032 when we start to see very significant jumps in the price of Bitcoin. I think today we think these are significant jumps. These are not significant jumps. We are going to see massive jumps in the price of Bitcoin.
Well, hopefully. Let's see. It'd be nice if the world could agree on some sort of digital asset that is a reserve that is non-screwable with by everybody and non-endlessly printable. Basically, that's the dream. And I guess for a long time it seems we had gold that did a pretty good job of being that, and then we decided gold wasn't good enough and we would just print money backed with nothing. And here we are at the fourth turning of monetary cycles, and maybe Bitcoin will come along to save us all. That would be quite the difference to the way all the other monetary cycles end, which is normally in collapse of empires. I'd really like that not to happen. Apparently so you think in the after the next halving or the halving after that, it says here that Bitcoin's we've got 19.9 million Bitcoins have been mined already. The remaining 1.1 we mined over the next 116 years, with the last Bitcoin expected to be mined in 2140. Wow. Okay, so whoever is whoever's smart enough to hand it down to their kids, basically.
Well, that's what people are saying. This is generational. The people who bought property in Manhattan before the city exploded and with its growth, there's some of those people are still holding on to the land today. You don't sell Manhattan real estate. You live off of it. Your family lives off of it forever.
Yeah. You put it in trusts, in a cold storage wallet.
Whatever. That's what's so great about Bitcoin is you can secure it in the future much better than you can secure Manhattan real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. And there may be 19.9 million mined, but there's quite a lot of them that have been lost to wallets that will never be recovered. I wonder how many people have lost fortunes.
Too many.
Those early days. Always write down your seed code, people. in like 12 different places. Yeah, it's that balance between putting it in lots of places and keeping it safe. You've got to find.
A lot of great solutions out there.
Yeah.
People should check out Unchained. They're a great partner for helping people determine their cold storage custody solutions.
So the other thing I wanted to say was apparently China controls 55% of the Bitcoin hash rate as of September 23rd, 2024, despite the apparent mining ban. So there's a lot of mining in China going on, actually, despite the bans.
I'm not sure that number. I'm not sure that number is correct. There's more Bitcoin mining in the United States than any other country in the world right now.
Really?
Unless there's some sort of crazy new they don't even allow mining there. And also, it's important to keep in mind that the vast majority of those miners, they moved to the U.S. when China banned Bitcoin mining.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you. So it's apparently, according to Qi Yong Zhu, founder and CEO of CryptoQuant, he's claiming that Chinese mining pools operate 55% of the network.
Oh, mining pools. Yeah, mining pools are different. Yeah.
Okay.
So Bitcoin Mine is the one who has the hardware. They're running the machines. And what they do is they collectively pool their resources or their hash rate together to be able to increase their odds of securing the next block so that they can smooth out their reward patterns. So there's a lot of different Bitcoin mining pools. And I think there's like 2 of them or 3 of them in China that are very big. We have some big ones here in the United States as well. In my opinion, this problem is going to be eliminated. It's going to be solved. Groups like Ocean Mining Pool, you probably haven't heard of them. You will. They're an incredible company. They're solving the decentralization problem for Bitcoin mining pools, which is a serious problem, but they're helping to solve that problem. And it's growing, and they're going to be doing great stuff in the future.
The only pool that miners make direct recipients of new block rewards from Bitcoin, giving them full transparency and control over the transactions they mine with their hash rate. Interesting. Established a hub in El Salvador. Oh, it's backed by Jack Dorsey. That's very interesting. $6.2 million.
Jack Dorsey, and then one of the original, most well-respected core developers for Bitcoin is also developing that project.
Interesting. Do you believe any of there's been a couple of people unmasked as Satoshi Nakamoto, quote unquote, unmasked over the past year. Do you think any of them are accurate?
No.
Does it matter?
No.
Good answer. I mean, yeah, we've got the technology now. Cat's out of the bag. So to wrap up, what do you think? What do you think we're going to see before the end of the year? Anything big coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see countries and states start buying Bitcoin. I can almost nearly, and I've never said this before about our policy work, I can almost 100% guarantee that a state will start buying Bitcoin in 2025.
Well, that is the quote I'm going to use to lead this podcast with. Dennis, that's a beautiful place to leave it. Is there anything you'd like to plug before we finish?
For those of you that want to reach out, follow our work, you can go to satoshiaction.io. We will be actually opening up our monthly policy call for those newsletter subscribers. So if you go to our website, you can subscribe right on the homepage, get an inside scoop, inside look into what we're doing to be able to advance strategic Bitcoin reserve legislation all across the world. You can reach out to me on Twitter. You can just search Dennis Porter. I'll be the number one that shows up with the blue check mark. Reach out to me. Happy to read the DM. Sometimes I respond to the DMs. I try to read them all. But they're getting very busy these days. A lot of lawmakers are reaching out to me in my DMs now, so I have to check them pretty regularly. There is more demand now today for Bitcoin policy than ever before in history. And I tell people we were for a while pushing the rock up the hill, but we are over the top of the hill now, and the rock is going down the other side. The momentum that we have is incredible. The potential that we have is, you can feel it. The team can feel it. It's a great place to be in.
Well, thank you very much for your time, man. It's an exciting time to be watching the space and to be involved, even minutely. So thanks for the work you're doing, and I look forward to following your story as it evolves and see where this all takes us.
Thank you. It was great to be on, Josh. And for those that want to support our work, we are doing an end of year fundraising goal. So go check us out. We're trying to raise $500,000 so we can be able to push this legislation across the finish line for Bitcoin. If you like the work that we do, become a monthly supporter of our work. We're never going to stop fighting for Bitcoin.
I'll put the links for everything in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hey, listeners, real quick. Do you ever find yourself sitting watching the stock market like this? Well, now you could instead be ordering my book like this. It's the story of GameStop. You can purchase it with a hoodie, with acknowledgements, or just with the early backers edition. It's all about the GameStop story. It's the real story, not just what you've seen on films. It's exactly what has happened over the last 3.5 years. And with DFE back, I'm finally able to draw a conclusion to my book. Please pre-order it. It really helps me out. And you will get it eventually, I promise. Hopefully this year.